Yeah, we're all gonna be. With the teacher. Yeah. Like, all right. I'm not gonna be able to be here.
One minute, folks. Please have a seat. Don't make me come put you in your seat. It's undignified. All right. Good afternoon. It's now 1 p.m. and I'm calling the quarterly board meeting of the State Bar of Texas Board of Directors to order. With our agenda posting, we invited members of the public to view a broadcast of the Board of Directors meeting live at www.youtube.com/State Bar of Texas. We also provided instructions on how to sign up at today's meetings. Signups were available until 5 p.m. Central yesterday. Members of the public will speak under agenda item 5. And those members of the public joining remotely will remain in the Zoom waiting room until it is their turn to speak. It's my understanding we don't have anyone by Zoom today. Please note this meeting will be recorded and the recording will be made available to the public. At this time, Mr. Executive Director, would you please call the roll?
Director Augusto, Director Baruch, Director Bullard, Director Cavillo, Director Cantu, Director Cardenas, Director Cavazos, Director Charbonnet, Director Cherry has an excused absence. Director Clark, Director Cochran, Director Courageous, Director Crosley, Director Culpepper, Director Barunda Firth, Director Fisher, Director Forbes, Director Fuller, Director Gibson, Director Goss, Director Harris, Director Hill, Director Hoskins, Director Huddleston, Director Israni has an excused absence. Director Kern, Director Kroger, Senior Justice Lehrman, Judge McClure, Director McDonald, Director Miller, Director Morales, Director Mount, Director Naylor, Director Pineda, Director Pratt, Judge Ramirez has an excused absence. Director Rispoli, Director Ritter, Director Scambato, Director Scott, Director Sloan, Director David Smith, Director Michael Smith has an excused absence. Director Todd Smith, Director Stafford, Director Stelly has an excused absence. Director Sood, Director Thiagi Rajan, Director Tisdale, Director Tobin, Director Toby, Director Tobin, Director Tolchin, Director Vargas, Director Vasquez, Judge Wilkinson, Director Pack Wilson, Director Wooten, Justice Young. Mr. Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to ask Director Pack Wilson to come forward and lead the invocation.
Thank you, Chair. Will you bow your heads while I pray? Holy One, thank you for your many and abundant blessings. Thank you for the ability to be involved in useful work and for the honor of bearing these responsibilities. Thank you for each mind and heart that fills this room. We specifically ask your blessings on the people who have been called to lead the State Bar of Texas. Guide us to lead with integrity, wisdom, and courage. Remind us that we are not only leaders, but also servants, and that it is our responsibility to serve all. May we always be guided by the spirit of community, by the spirit of justice, and by the spirit of love. May our personal faiths give us strength to act honestly and well in all matters before us. Amen.
Thank you. This time, Director Cavazos will lead us in the pledges.
Please face a U.S. flag and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic and one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please face the Texas flag and join me in the pledge. I, under the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, one house. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Cavazos. At this time, we would like to invite any members of the public who have signed up to speak. Any member of the public joining us in person who wishes to speak should sign a blue sign-in card and return it to State Bar staff. If there's a specific topic of discussion or agenda item you would like to speak on, please list that on the card. And we don't have anyone in the Zoom waiting room. Are any members of the public here to speak? No. Seeing none, we will now close the public comment period. Directors who are on the agenda today, you will note circles on either side. That is Director Calvillo's doing. He has noted that my on-deck circle innovation saves us approximately 15 minutes of every board meeting. So as I announce that you are on deck, please go to the on-deck circle that I have placed for your use. That brings us to agenda item 6. For those of you keeping score at home, that is the report from the chair of the board. The first item we have is the consent agenda. I'll need a motion. Is there a motion to approve? Well, first, is there any discussion of the consent agenda? Need a motion to approve? So moved by Director Charbonnet. Do I have a second? Second from Director Tolshin. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Thank you. All right, at this time then, President Gibson will present a resolution.
Thank you very much. Many of you know that on February 11, 2023, Texas lost a legal legend when James Sales passed away after a brief illness. I'm privileged to honor him today with this resolution. As I wrote in the March Texas Bar Journal, according to family, Jim was cooking Julia Child-inspired meals for his loving wife, Buena, reading a book a day, active in his children and his grandchildren's lives, and attending weekly mass. He ordered 3 custom suits that were ready shortly after he passed. Jim had plans to do more. Jim came from humble beginnings. He was born during the Great Depression and was the first person in his family to go to college. He received academic and ROTC scholarships and worked during school at the University of Texas. Jim was a proud Marine and stayed fit his entire life. After earning his law degree, he joined the firm now known as Norton Rose Fulbright, where he worked for 62 years. That's my entire life. Before stepping down from his role as counsel in 2022, Jim tried over 100 cases to verdict. He was a consummate leader. He served as president of the Houston Bar Association, helped to found the Houston Bar Foundation, and served as its first chair of the board. Jim was president of the State Bar of Texas from 1988 to 1989, focusing his efforts on improving the grievance complaint process, supporting the delivery of legal services to the poor, and expanding the concept of alternative dispute resolution. As a leader in his state and local bar, Jim also helped to create the Texas Lawyers Assistance Program, the Houston Volunteer Lawyer Program, and other programs designed to aid people who are in need of assistance. In addition, he served as the first chair of the Texas Access for Justice Commission, where he worked closely with the Supreme Court to establish statewide programs designed to expand access to justice for all Texans. It is only fitting that one of Jim's favorite quotes, which has often been attributed to Winston Churchill, is, "We make a living by what we get. We make a life by what we give." Jim changed his focus from success to significance, and I'm grateful he did that. Here today to accept this resolution on their family's behalf are Travis and Sandy Sales and their son James, who just turned 27 yesterday, and Marshall Sales, a grandson of Jim Sales, who is also a new appointee based on our consent agenda that we just passed on the Access to Justice Commission, where he will serve as the TYLA liaison in that regard. Could I ask Travis and Sandy and James and Marshall to come forward so that we can present this resolution?
Okay. That brings us to agenda item 6C, which is the general report from the chair. I'll be very brief. I do want to thank Director Miller for inviting me to be the Law Day speaker in Corpus Christi. Had a great time down there. And just want to say thank you to everyone in this room for the privilege of serving as your chair this year. I don't have any more words than to just say thank you from the bottom of my heart. Hope your confidence was not misplaced. And most of all, well, thank you, but unnecessary, but thank you. Thank you very much. But stay standing because let's all give a tremendous round of applause to the State Bar staff who make me look competent. Thank you. It's now my honor to give out a couple of awards, and the first is the Outstanding Third Year Director Award. And I just want to mention ridiculous. You know, I have to say something about our class in general, the third year director class. So this is a chair's award, so if I got it wrong, I got it wrong, but not really my style. So I polled the leadership group and asked everybody to make 2 nominations. And if memory serves me correctly, there was only one name who appeared on more than one list, which gives you an idea. This award could have gone to most of the third year class. I just found that remarkable when I got it back and there were all these different names. I thought, wow, this is a really, really special group of people. Every once in a while, though, a great many people in the third year class rendered tremendous service to the bar, but only one did so in connection with a direct threat to the very existence of the state bar. And that is the person that is going to receive the award this year. For the past 2 years, this director has provided exemplary leadership as chair of the Litigation and Contracts Subcommittee during what was, to say the least, a critical time for the bar. For the past 3 years, she's been an active member of the Performance Measures and Strategic Planning Subcommittee, where her questions and input always improved the quality of its work. During the course of her tenure on the board, this director also contributed her talents to the policy manual, DCAP, appeals grant review, and executive committees. She is an exceptionally steady voice, always a voice of calm, reason, respect. And we just are going to miss her dearly. It is my tremendous pleasure to present the Outstanding Third Year Director Award to Mary Scott.
I just really want to thank everyone for such a fabulous opportunity here. The last 3 years have just been amazing to me, and I've loved every minute of it. I'm just so disappointed I can't stay longer, but I guess we have to give everybody a shot at serving our community, our legal community. So thanks very much, and thank you, Chad, for the award. I appreciate it very much. Thanks.
The board policy manual also provides that from time to time, not always, but sometimes, the chair may make special awards to public members of the board for outstanding service. Our public members are, I can't say they're unappreciated because I think everyone in this room appreciates every one of them so very much, but they really are a tremendous asset to the board. We've been very fortunate to have some exceptional people. This year, I have chosen a director who's been a key member of the Budget Committee and the Performance Measures and Strategic Planning Subcommittee. As chair of the Performance Measures Subcommittee this year, he successfully guided the bar through an update of its long-range strategic plan. He's respected among our board for his engagement and perspective on all of the issues facing the bar and for his uniform good humor and grace. Luis Cavazos, we are grateful to for your exceptional service.
I'm lost for words. I was not expecting this. Chad, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure working with all of you. And I hope that I can work at least for another year. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay, at this time, we're going to take agenda item 20 out of order. So I'd like to ask Chief Justice Hecht is with us. If he and Ms. Myers, the head of the Access to Justice Commission, would come forward, they will present that report. It's not your fault, Chief. I didn't say on deck circle. This one's on me.
Thank you, Chad, and good afternoon, directors, and thank you for the invitation to report on an initiative that is being considered by the Texas Access to Justice Commission, of which Harriet is chair. We'll be looking at expanding legal services for the poor. So just a brief history. The poor, as the teacher admonished us, are always with us. And in the end of the 19th century, efforts began in earnest to try to provide legal services for those who could not afford them. That didn't get very far in a few cities until the Johnson administration, which proposed the Legal Services Corporation, which President Nixon signed into law a few days before he left office. It has continued to the present and provided funding. There are 3 legal service providers in Texas, more than any other state. It provides funding for legal aid throughout the United States, in every state. In addition, states have tried to develop various initiatives on their own. I am proud to say that in Texas, we have, I think, what you will agree is a fairly conservative legislature, and they have been very supportive, particularly in the last decade since IOLTA, since the decline of IOLTA, very supportive in providing general appropriations and specific funding for legal aid in Texas. Legal aid for veterans, legal aid for sexual assault victims, legal aid for children in this recent session, almost $4 million. And they have always been interested in ways that we can increase provision of legal services for the poor. In addition, I'm always very proud of the bar for the pro bono work that it does. We don't expect grocers to feed the poor for free. We don't expect builders to house them for free. Part of our noble profession is that we try to ensure that legal services are provided to those who can't afford them at no cost. And Texas lawyers are outstanding in their provision of pro bono for the poor. But with the funding and I would say just very strong efforts over the years to increase it and continuing. And with the pro bono efforts of the bar, we're still meeting maybe 10%. There are various estimates, but it's around 10% of the need. I think legal aid providers in Texas closed some like 140,000 cases last year. So this is coming off COVID. So you say if that's 10%, what is the full need that's out there? And it's really quite enormous. We're almost a fourth of the way into the 21st century, and we're at the very best in the middle of the pack among nations around the globe in providing legal services for the poor. Some say we're a lot worse than that. And almost everybody says we're falling behind many other countries. So we're always looking for ways to increase legal services to the poor. It is a great testament to the profession. It is important to the integrity of the justice system. It is supported by policymakers and lawmakers of all stripes. It's a nonpartisan issue, and we simply have to explore every way we can to do that. One new initiative that is has already been adopted in the state of Arizona, pretty much in Utah, and has been adopted in several other states around the country. No particular part of the country. A whole lot of other states are looking at it, and that is to try to provide legal services in some very restricted, limited, supervised ways through licensed paraprofessionals. So I asked the Access to Justice Commission to look at this last fall. Justice Busby is the court's liaison to the commission. He wrote a letter to Harriet asking her to begin the study. The commission formed a working group. It's met a couple of times. It's meeting next week. And it's working on the details of proposals that would allow people who qualify for legal aid, which is about 5 million Texans, who make 125% of the poverty, federal poverty level. So what's that? Maybe $14,000, $15,000 these days. To be assisted in getting legal aid from legal aid lawyers with these paraprofessionals. We tried to make the group as inclusive as we could. We accepted every offer of assistance. If you've got time on your hands and you want to help out, I'm sure we can find a place for you. We want it to be a representative group. It's representative of various areas of practice, various parts of the state, various demographics in the bar, and we want it to be transparent. They're making reports which will be made available to everyone to describe the process to you as it continues, and I am anticipating coming to fruition before too long. Then they'll make a report to the Supreme Court, and we'll take it up and decide what the best course is. Before anything is fixed, the members of the general public will be invited to make any comments they want to on the provisions, just as with any rules process. So the court welcomes your letters now. You're welcome to write to me. I'd rather you wrote to Justice Busby so that I don't lose the letter, or certainly to Harriet, who's chair of the commission, and sit in on a meeting if that opportunity presents itself, but certainly correspond with us, and that the process will wind along until as I say, I hope it will conclude sometime into this year. So I was asked to give you a report on the project. What did I leave out, Harriet? All right. The work, if Arizona is any indication, it will make a difference in the provision of legal services. Other states, particularly Wisconsin, where Chief Justice Gilday up there is working on the project and reporting that it's helping. And as I say, and just in closing, we owe it to the profession, we owe it to the public, we owe it to the integrity of the justice system to do everything we can to make sure that people are not precluded from recognizing the full promise of justice simply because of limited means. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Chief Justice Heck. Did you have anything to add, Ms. Myers? You're here.
Just briefly, we'll go ahead. This is great when you're with the chief making a report because you get to jump ahead of everybody. I apologize to everybody for doing that, but while we're here, we'll take care of everything. And I just want to offer three great thanks. And the first is to the court and to the bar for the support that you give us day in and day out at the Access to Justice Commission. It really is inspiring to see people coming forward and offering time and resources. And so thank you very much for the state bar support that we have in the wonderful personnel. Trey and Chris Ritter, his group are just wonderful. So thank you for that. We thank the court for two new members of our commission. Brad Tobin, the former dean of Baylor Law School, will add to our group as a new commissioner, and also Pablo Omlagar. And I know I don't need to introduce him to you because he's one of the bar's former chairs. So great people to join us. And then the last thing, I really do want to pay tribute to and thank Judge Laura Livingston, who when we lost our executive director and asked Judge Livingston to step in, she not only stepped in, she has done a marvelous job. And I just think I'm duty bound to tell you what a wonderful executive interim director she is making. And I thank her for all of that. And she gives you really good advice, because I told her I was going to be here with Chief Justice Hecht and he was going to speak first. And I asked her, well, what should I say? And she said, just say what he said.
Are there any comments from directors? If you'd like to make a comment, please approach the microphone. Please address that to the chair, though, Director Fisher.
Well, first, I really appreciate Chief Justice, because when he writes me, he knows the names of all my dogs, and so I really like that. I just wonder, I guess I'll ask you, are family lawyers represented on that? I have that group with 5,200 family lawyers, and I went to the family law section just a month ago, and there are other people here. Cynthia was here, and I can tell you, huh?
To the microphone. Please step to the microphone.
Okay,
please.
sorry. Okay, I wanted to know if family lawyers were represented on that, and I just noted that I was part of the family law section, and Cindy was there with me, where they were vociferously against any use of non-lawyers practicing law. And I just wondered if those people have been represented. And I know Joan Delicato was really strong about it. I'm only speaking as director and as the head of that, or the founder of that family lawyers. I'm not speaking as the chair of the legal services.
I believe we're not going to have questions, but I believe your question is going to be answered by the next comment from a director standing right behind you. I think you're going to get an answer, Director Fisher. Chair recognizes Director Pack Wilson.
Thank you. I don't know what happened to this.
Well, Director Fisher was doing dinner theater and adjusted the microphone. There we go.
At my first time at the microphone in 3 years, I will say, as I go out, but I would like to let the board know and the chair know that there are family law members on the Access to Justice Commission. Our own Kenan Wooten chairs one of the subcommittees and is on that committee, and she has kindly, as has the entire committee, listened to those of us who practice in smaller areas and who practice family law, and we are well represented on this work that the Access to Justice Commission is doing. Look forward to seeing our work come to fruition soon.
Thank you. I believe that answers your question, Director Fisher. that there is adequate representation there, or at least representation. Any other comments from directors? That wasn't meant to be a joke at your expense. I'm sorry. That came out totally wrong, Director Pack Wilson. I know your representation to be adequate. At this time, we'll move on to agenda item number 8, which is the report from our president, Laura Gibson.
Immediate past President Barunda Firth will provide an update on this project later in the meeting. Thanks to the leadership of President Gibson, our hardworking Law Practice Management Committee, and our dedicated staff, there is much activity to report on in the area of succession planning, and President Gibson will be providing details during her report to the board. But I'm very proud of the work that our Law Practice Management Committee and our State Bar staff have done in that area. We underwent successful internal audits of our CAP, advertising review, membership, and investments departments. You'll hear a full report on that later in the meeting. Our leadership SBOT celebrated its 15th year of existence. And at this year's leadership SBOT meeting, we had Judge McClure, John Netchman, Pamela Benson Owens, and President Laura Gibson speak. And also always thanks to Karen Chevins, Tracy Brown, and Jennifer Reams for working and establishing those relationships over those 15 years to help make that program a success. We relocated our San Antonio CDC office. We recently had 24 State Bar staff receive certification in the areas of CPR and AED training. I want to bring you up to date on our section and committee reports. This is just a small sampling of the bar's activities here. For more information on the accomplishments of our State Bar relative to 2022-2023, I encourage you to read the section and committee reports that were included with your materials. These reports will be published in the July-August issue of the Texas Bar Journal. So thank you to our volunteers who make up our sections and committees for the countless hours of work represented in these reports and for your dedication to the legal profession. In mid-April, I had the incredible privilege of interviewing former Secretary of State James Baker III at the Baker Institute for Public Policy at Rice University. Our conversation was recorded for a free CLE webcast on June 7, titled James Baker and the Art of Negotiation. We discussed what lawyers need to know about negotiation, how a legal education can help you make deals in Washington, and how to enjoy a long and productive career in the law. I want to thank Secretary Baker. I got to tell you, arriving there at the Baker Institute and sitting across the desk from Secretary Baker was intimidating, to say the least. But he was very charming. He put me at ease within just a few short minutes, and we had a wonderful discussion. and I highly commend you to watch this program and pass it along to your colleagues. I want to thank Secretary Baker. I want to thank John Williams and everyone at the Baker Institute for being gracious hosts. I want to thank Director Bill Kroger and his colleagues at Baker Botts for making this event happen and for helping to publicize the webcast to our membership. I want to thank Paul Burks. Paul's in the back of the room. Paul, just stand up, and if you get a chance to look over your shoulder. So let me just tell you, Paul's the Director of Video Production for Texas Bar CLE. I got to sit there and ask the questions, but Paul was there hours before I was. In fact, the evening before, he was taking photos outside of the Baker Institute. He was taking photos and footage inside, and there were cameras everywhere, camera angles from every which way you can imagine. And I asked the questions, but Paul Burks brought it to life. So Paul, thank you very much for your professionalism and your dedication to your craft. I appreciate it. I want to thank Eric Katigwa for his coverage on behalf of the Texas Bar Journal. And we had nearly 2,000 registrations for the first release of it. I also want to thank Lowell Brown, our Communications Division Director, for his extensive research and assistance in preparing for the interview. Lowell, thank you very much. So the webcast is now available to watch on demand on the Texas Bar CLE website under free online classes, and it is accredited for 3/4 of an hour in ethics. The 2023 annual meeting obviously we're on the eve of that, and we're meeting here in Austin this week. For anyone watching who hasn't registered, you can still come to Austin and register on site for the activities on Thursday and Friday. You can go to texasbar.com, annual meeting for details. Now for the Staff Excellence Award. Frank Huerta, if you're in the back, please come forward. So Frank was brought here under false pretenses. He thought he was coming over here to help with the Zoom programming. But I want to recognize Frank for just a second. So Frank joined our customer service department in February 2017. And when you walk through the front doors of the Texas Law Center, Frank is there to greet you and assist you with a smile. Frank has excelled this year by taking on new responsibilities and new duties. He is now the go-to person for resolving issues with Teams desktop phones and handling technical issues in many Zoom rooms throughout the building. He also helps maintain our weekly happenings calendar, so we at the State Bar staff building, we all know what meetings we have in our building each week. Frank works hard and always has a friendly and helpful demeanor. If you go to him and he doesn't have the answer to your question, he will go and hunt that answer down. He's calm, he's empathetic when assisting our members and staff, and doesn't make you feel simple-minded with any question or concern. Frank, thank you for your commitment to excellence and your dedication to the State Bar of Texas and the people it serves. Congratulations. Mr. Chair, that completes my report.
Thank you, Executive Director Apfel. That brings us to Agenda Item 8, the report from our State Bar President, Laura Gibson.
So the fun part of this job, I get to present presidential citations. I'm going to honor some individuals with presidential citations for their exceptional work over the past year. Now, don't take away the fact that some of these people cannot be here, the fact that they really appreciate the recognition. They just have very busy schedules. So the first recipient is Greg Sampson of Dallas. Greg is a former State Bar director, and he and I co-chaired the task force or working group on succession planning in the 2018-2019 bar year. Greg will serve as the chair of the Law Practice Management Committee next year. He's been instrumental in the succession planning work we've done this year that I'll tell you about later. And he has really put a lot of time and energy into this. He was a co-presenter on the webcast we did earlier called Don't Wait, Designate, concerning the importance of designating a custodian attorney. And he's just gone above and beyond in terms of his efforts. So let's congratulate Greg Sampson. Our next recipient also could not be here. She is Shanna Faulhaber. She is the lawyer in Athens, Texas, who founded and co-administers the Facebook group known as Texas Lawyers Wellness, which serves approximately 2,000 members. Texas Lawyers Wellness is a place for Texas attorneys to talk about life, law, and the pursuit of wellness. And if you have not been to the Texas Lawyer Wellness Facebook group, I commend it to you. They always have very inspirational, insightful, and great advice on how we can maintain our good mental health. And I really want to thank her. She not only organized the Facebook group, last year she hosted a retreat for the members, and she's hosting another one, I think, in the fall of this year. So she has just done a great job. So please join me in thanking Shayna Faulhaber. The third recipient also could not be here. It's Josue Galvan. Josue is an attorney in San Antonio. He was a member of Leadership SBOT. He's a director of the Texas Young Lawyers Association, and he played a key role in updating TYLA's Grievance and Malpractice 101. It's a pocket guide providing practical tips and resources on how to avoid and deal with grievance and malpractice issues. He has done an exceptional job, and I can't tell you how happy I am that Michael and I independently came up with so many overlapping presidential initiatives, and without the support of TYLA, our grievance and malpractice education could not be what it has been this year. So please join me in congratulating Josue. Okay, sorry. The next two recipients are here because they're members of our board, and they are both third-year directors. The State Bar has benefited greatly from not only the sharp dress in the form of those bow ties, but also the knowledge and skills of David Cavillo. He is both an attorney and a CPA. He has put these skills to good use as chair of the Audit and Finance Committee and as a member of the Budget and Executive Committees, among other roles. And I find his presentations to be easy to understand. I think that's a first from my view of being on this board for several years and having an Audit Finance Committee chair that presents ways that those of us who are not good with numbers can understand. So I really appreciate it. And with this citation, we want to honor David for his hard work. We are going to miss you. You've left big shoes to fill. Come forward. My next presidential citation recipient also has big shoes to fill. Lucy Forbes stands out for her kindness, her diligence, and her commitment to the work of our bar. She's been a key member of many committees throughout her tenure. She's been on the executive committee, the policy manual committees, and she's done excellent work as the Client Security Fund Subcommittee Chair. Our meeting last week was so efficient, it kind of left me wanting something because it happened so fast. I have known Lucy for many, many years. When I was chair of the Association of Women Attorneys, or president of the Association of Attorneys in Houston, we were a dying organization. We had no social media whatsoever. And at a meeting, I asked, would somebody volunteer to be in charge of social media? And Lucy came up and volunteered and did an excellent job. Despite her health challenges, she has given her all to this organization. I thank Lucy for her extraordinary efforts on behalf of the bar and the people it serves. Lucy, come forward. The remaining presidential citations are members of our dedicated state bar professional staff. First, I want to recognize Paul Burks. Paul, could you come forward? Will that mess up our video? I don't think so. Maybe Craig can make sure our cameras doesn't stay off. We recorded a number of videos this year, and at our April meeting, I don't know if y'all saw me standing out in the little garden area filming something in the morning. I needed to make remarks for an event in Dallas, and I talked to Lowell and Paul the night before and said, hey, if I don't have to fly to Dallas to give a 3-minute statement or remarks, it would surely make my life easier. I was going to have to do it the next week, and which I would have loved to have done, but it just didn't come at a good time. And Paul just dropped everything. We got it done and does an excellent job. I was there on May 15 for the new lawyers induction. And on my way there, I got an email from the chair of the Law Practice Management Committee asking me to do a video. It wasn't clear what the video was, what they wanted. And so I said, Paul, I'm here. And Jennifer tells me I'm not going to be back in Austin until the annual meeting. Can we do something now? Again, he dropped everything. We did another presentation. And then I found out that's not what they wanted. And we did another one. So we have benefited tremendously, not only from the interview with James Baker, but also for all of the free CLE that we have provided to our members, and we couldn't have done it without Paul. My next presidential citation goes to the staff of the Texas Lawyers Assistance Program: Erica Grigg, Michelle Fontenot, Alicia Freeman, Paul Jacobs, and Penny Wood. If those of you who could make it, come up front, please. As you know, lawyer wellness has been a big initiative of mine, and I could not have made near the progress that we've made without TLAP. Erica before she left us, was always just right fingers at hands with advice and helped me on some of the columns I wrote that were addressed to lawyer wellness. So congratulations, you guys. You know, we gave a resolution honoring Jim Sales. It was during Jim Sales' presidency that Mike Crowley came to the board and reported that we weren't last in the country in terms of our lawyer's assistance program because we had one. That's all he could say for it, is that we had one. And under Jim Sales' leadership, we made our TLAP program more robust by having a full-time staff member, and it has gone from there to truly being the model for the country. So we should be very proud of that. And it couldn't happen without the folks at TLAP. I have one more award to give to a State Bar staff group, but they are busy doing work, so we'll come back to that when they're available to receive their award. So I'll go to my general report. Where is the, here. Maybe let's just get Lowell to drive it from the back. Yeah, there we go. So this is a photo from the Texas Access to Justice Commission Gala. Which one do I use? Benefiting veterans. It actually happened, I think, the Tuesday before our April board meeting, but we didn't have time to get it on the program at our April meeting in Waco. So it was a really great event, benefits a great cause, and I was delighted to be there. This is a photo from the University of Houston Law Center annual gala. And that's Jennifer Hasley, who's a former president of the Houston Bar Association, being honored with Dean Len Baines. This is the Fifth Circuit Judicial Conference, a photo of me and Cindy and Trey and Michael, and we are congratulating David Keltner of Fort Worth and Dick Swartz of Houston, who both received very significant honors that program. This is the May 11th Gulf Coast Family Law Specialist. So many of you know my father was a family law lawyer. The Gulf Coast Family Law Specialist named an award in his name in 1989, the year before he passed away. And he was able to go to the first dinner at which Bucky Allshouse was presented with the David A. Gibson Award, award. And if you go to Bucky's Allshouse's website, it still to this day starts David A. Gibson Award for Legal Excellence recipient. And this is Trey Yates, a Houston family law lawyer who received it this year. I'm so honored that they invite me every year to make remarks on behalf of my family and to be a witness to the recipient. This is the TYLA meeting. I'd never been to Rockwall, Kenda. It's where's everybody? David was there. It's just such a great event. It makes me feel younger to be around so many young people. And Michael in his letter jacket, I can't remember what the theme was, but there's always a theme. And then this is Rosalind, so that was a lot of fun. I think that's my last picture. Oh, no, this is part of, I think my most favorite part of this job is getting to go to the new lawyer induction ceremony to speak to new lawyers. And this is your new leadership team before that new lawyer induction. And this is making remarks to those people. So it's been a busy quarter. And, you know, as president, I have sought to support lawyers in our profession by expanding awareness of our attorney discipline system, stressing the importance of lawyer well-being, and alerting our members to pressing needs for succession planning. And I think we have made really big strides in all three. I'll give you more detail at the general session, but for now, some highlights. The CLE webcasts associated with my 3 presidential initiatives have reached 47,000 of our 112,000 attorneys with critical information on these important topics. We had nearly 14,000 people register for what every lawyer should know about the attorney grievance system. We had over 23,000 registrations for Just Ask How We Must Stop Minding Our Own Business in the Legal World, which is about suicide and depression prevention, and more than 10,000 registrations for Don't Wait, Designate, which concerns the custodian designation. I wrote 2 columns, 2 presidential pages dealing with lawyer wellness. The first was securing your own oxygen mask first, and the second one was it's okay to ask for help. And I'm sorry that Paul Jacobs had to leave. He's part of the TLAP group, but he was telling me today that he's been getting lots of calls from lawyers who said, I read the column about it's okay to ask for help, and people are doing it. So, you know, I get these emails from people who are professionals in mental health wellness, and they tell me that by someone being vulnerable themselves, someone in a leadership position admitting that they have difficulties and challenges, that it models the behavior that we want our other lawyers to take advantage of. It's not a sign of weakness to ask for help. So I'm really proud to have gotten such good results and that people are getting help because it's important to do so. So I bet you didn't know that today, the longest day of the year, is Designate Your Custodian Day. So what better day to designate your custodian than the longest day of the year? And thank you to the great work of our Law Practice Management Committee. We unveiled our toolkit this morning at about 9:30. So I recorded the video I mentioned about succession planning when I was at the Bar Building on May 15. And that's on the website. You can see that now. And then Greg Sampson recorded one, and Steve Bolton, who's the current chair of the Law Practice Management, recorded one. Rebecca Steely-Brooker and John Meredith, who are also active in law practice management, wrote, I guess, a post on something about how important succession planning is. And it's going to be a great toolkit. It is so easy. You can go around this wheel and click on whichever part you're interested, whatever part of that process or phase you are in your law practice, and click on the tools for that. And it's designed to help attorneys and other legal practitioners understand and apply necessary elements to address the growing problem of unexpected and unprepared succession of practice. The toolkit begins with an overview of the most basic and critical step, which is the designation of a custodian, and moves into instructions on file management. And it's the most comprehensive portion of the toolkit provides a compendium of practical information for use when the arc of your practice has a foreseeable outcome. We've included tips and checklists with timelines as the practice begins to wind down. And you can find information about preparing your practice for sale and the ethical and transactional factors to be considered. The Law Practice Management Committee did amazing work. Take some time while you're here at the annual meeting and click on the Law Practice Management site to see the toolkit, and tell all the solo practitioners in your districts about this important tool and the fact that they don't want their legacy to be that they left their family and their staff in a lurch and their clients in a lurch. So that completes my report on my presidential initiatives, and now I'll move to an action item, which is dealing with the continuation of the Building Planning Special Committee. The board created this committee on September 24 of 2021 to oversee the development of 1415 Lavaca. The term for the special committee has expired. Today, we are asking the board to consider continuing the committee, approving its roster, and granting them authority to make decisions about the building. The proposed committee, as you've seen if you've reviewed your board materials, is made up mostly of current board members and officers, and we recommend that Sylvia Brundefurth continue serving as chair for next year. In the meeting materials under the President's tab is a proposed roster of members. Immediate past President Sylvia Brundefurth will give a brief update on the building and development during her report. I'd like to make a motion to approve the continuation of the Building Planning Special Committee, including the approval of its roster of members, and grant authority to the committee to work with the State Bar staff regarding decisions on remodeling, repairs, and uses of the 1415 Lavaca building.
That motion not coming from the committee will require a second. Is there a second? Director Miller seconds the motion. Is there any discussion from directors? All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
My last thing I want to say is it's been a true honor to serve as your president this year. Old directors, existing directors, know that I give the board members my family's secret spice recipe, and it's called Special Blend. And you new directors in the back should have a jar, and I know our new officers of TYLA and the State Bar don't have theirs yet, but I've got them for them as well. But I think it's only fitting to give this as a gift because this group truly is a special blend. You know, people join this board having no idea what they're in for or whether this will be a meaningful use of their time. And you heard Mary saying, I just wish I could stay, because what you will find is that the people in this room are of such high caliber and have the best interests of the bar at heart and mind, and they're so talented, and they're so smart, and they're so nice and thoughtful and kind that it just creates this special blend of lawyers throughout the state of Texas. And so I think it's fitting that you have this special blend. It's also really good on your food. Any kind of meat, pastas, and I sent an email out telling existing board members that I would bring extra special blend, which I have. I think our day today will probably be too crammed. We might have some downtime during photos, but if you brought your jar, like I requested, I have a special blend to fill for you. Maybe we can do it. If you can find a baggie someplace, somebody find a baggie, right, if you forgot your jar. I've got plenty, and my husband said that I'm I don't know the right word. He just said you're going to go home with a lot of special blend. And I want to prove him wrong, right? So if you brought your jar, or even if you didn't, I've got special blend for you. Thank you again for your friendship and your camaraderie.
So if you are a member or follow Texas Lawyers Wellness, you'll see people post on there quite often the various crises they're going through. And more often than not, you will see a personal response in the comments from the president of the State Bar of Texas, directing them to resources, taking the time to sort of validate what they're feeling and offering them empathy and kindness. And more than anything you have done in your presidential initiatives, I think, President Gibson, that will be your legacy, that lawyers all over the state who may have negative feelings about the State Bar, their opinions have been changed by the fact that a sitting bar president took the time to respond personally to them. Thank you. And I have my empty jar, and I've been told that if I forget to fill it, I might as well stay in Austin. That brings us to agenda item number 9, which is our report from our president-elect, Cindy Tisdale.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and board. Wow, I have some big stilettos to fill this next year. I want to take a point of personal privilege and thank you, Laura, for guiding the way. I don't know when again we'll see 3 women sitting at this table, but it's been a joy and an honor to serve President Gibson and past President Borunda Firth. So thank you very much. Now we'll get started on the things I have been up to. I know it's been a long day, especially for those that were in the new director's orientation this morning. Thank you to Forrest and the committee for that. It was a wonderful, wonderful new director's meeting. So let's see what I've been up to. You've already seen a lot of my pictures and Laura's, so I'm not going to duplicate any pictures. There we go. So this is the Fifth Circuit Judicial Conference. As Laura said, hanging around TYLA, people make her feel younger. They make me feel older. I don't have near as much energy, but I always have fun and enjoy it. So we had a lot of fun at the Fifth Circuit Judicial Conference, but more importantly, we learned a lot. And you're about to hear one thing that I learned at this conference. I was sitting by Trey and looked at him and went, oh, we're doing this. So you'll hear about that in 1 second. The new lawyer's induction ceremony, again, I try to use some different pictures. So again, I'm with the TYLA incoming president, Laura, again, making me feel old. We had, not up here, but we had the meeting with the Supreme Court for our budget, and I'm going to get to that in a minute. I presented at the John Heffiker Agricultural Law course in Lubbock. Had a blast as always. It was a great turnout for them, and got to see Justice Johnson, so that was always a pleasure to see him. I spoke at the Texas Center for the Judiciary in Irving. I spoke there twice. I'm not doing two same pictures. And I'm very cognizant of the fact judges sometimes don't like their pictures taken at conferences. So that's why you just see my badge. I don't take pictures at judicial conference. I know better. And then the last but not least, or this is not last, sorry. I had the honor and privilege to attend the Louisiana State Bar Association swearing-in ceremony and annual meeting. Shana Saunier, sorry, there you see. She was sworn in. She and I got to know each other at one of the, I believe it was the Western States Conference meetings. We just hit it off, became great friends, and I had the honor and pleasure to attend her swearing in. And she's going to be at mine. So there you have it. And we can't have a presentation without me talking about Ted Lasso, right? Okay, who has seen the last episode? How many have seen it more than once? Yes, so I presented to the Montgomery County Bar. I was actually in trial. The judge let me go at lunch and have an aside, and kind of funny story, we're getting started, I'm being introduced and someone knocks on the door, opens it, Cindy, the judge wants you. And I'm looking, I'm about to start a Zoom, and so the judge graciously allowed me to continue. So that's what I've been up to, just a little bit. So I told you, I kind of teased a little bit about what some things I learned at the Fifth Circuit Conference. And so today you're going to get a sneak peek of what I'm going to talk more about on Friday. And that's to consider and discuss approval of the creation of an artificial intelligence work group, and including approval of its roster. Before I get into that, actually Trey and I were sitting at one of the speeches there at the conference, and it was on AI. After I got my jaw up off the floor, because not knowing this was even out there and the extent that it's out there, Trey and I started looking at each other and like, I think we need to look into this, and we need to get ahead of this and not behind this. That's what this work group is for. The use of artificial intelligence, as you know, it's increasingly common, especially with ChatGPT. If you haven't tried it, Michael Ritter, we were at the Fifth Circuit, and he downloaded it on my phone, because I didn't know how to get it on my phone. He downloaded my phone and said, look how you use this. And if you haven't used it to a dinosaur like me, it is scary. And I know you've all seen the news reports about attorneys using it incorrectly, things of that sort. So, while it has potential benefits for our profession, there's also some pitfalls. To help the State Bar address these issues, I'm proposing the creation of this artificial intelligence work group The purpose is going to be to study artificial intelligence in the legal profession, including the ethical implications, and make recommendations, if any, to this board, consistent with our statutory purposes. There is an initial roster that's in your report. It's very small for a reason. I'm keeping this work group small for a reason. The more people in the kitchen, sometimes it doesn't get done, right? And so we've kept this work group small in the beginning, and then I want feedback from them if they need it. It's made up of lawyers, a judge, and cybersecurity professionals. And so hopefully they can help us get in front of it. The work group will be effective upon this board's approval and would expire at the end of the 23-24 bar year. The creation of the work group is not expected to have a significant impact on the fiscal budget because they're going to be meeting via Zoom or electronic video conference. So at this time, Mr. Chair, I would like to move for approval of the creation of an artificial intelligence work group, including its roster.
Thank you. That motion will require a second. Director McDonald seconds. Any discussion from directors? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Now for the fun stuff, the Budget Committee. Yeah, the State Bar presented the fiscal year 23-24 proposed budget to the Supreme Court on May 15th. That was marking the final step, of course, in this budget process that started, for those of you in new director's orientation, when did it start? Last August. And so there were 8 justices in attendance. We were asked several questions. It was a good discussion, a robust discussion between the justices and the bar. There were several questions about the finances and the budget. We've received the order from the court on June 2nd of this year, officially adopting the budget for fiscal year 23-24. I want to thank the Supreme Court for their time and their attention to this budget. I also want to thank the members of the Budget Committee, our executive director and leader that took the questions from the court as masterfully as you could expect, which was masterful. And I want to say thank you to him and also the State Bar staff that helped us all along the way with the budget and with the entire process. One of the committee's most significant accomplishments, of course, was its review of the State Bar's financial trends and projections. This will assist the future budget committees, which I'm very proud of. It will help them in the future and in long-term planning for the bar. Another great accomplishment of the fiscal year 23-24 budget is that it set aside almost $4.4 million to cover projected budgetary shortfalls in the future. The bar has been fortunate to experience significant positive financial results from its operations over the last few years, especially when we went to Zoom for a lot of our meetings and saved a lot of money. And so it significantly beat the budget. But the excess from these operations has been reserved, of course, to cover future budgetary shortfalls. These practices provide a buffer for us, or a cushion to temper the rising cost of goods. As we all know, goods are rising, hotel rates are rising, food costs are rising, anything and everything down the chain is rising. And so this money set aside to help future budgets. This, of course, was going to be my last report to you regarding the budget and as chair of the Budget Committee. And then next year, President-elect Beneš will be taking over this Budget Committee, and he'll be reporting to you next year. But as the outgoing chair, I encourage the Budget Committee next year to continue the work of reviewing and updating the State Bar's trends and projections. I think that's very important for us to do. It's important we have an accurate budget. It's important we plan for the future. And again, I want to thank you for the service for this year as President-elect. I want to thank, again, my 2 colleagues here to my left, because they've made me look very good this year, and I appreciate that. So, Mr. Chair, that is my report.
Any comments from directors? Moves us to agenda item 10, our report from immediate past President Sylvia Barunda Firth.
Thank you, Chairman Baruch.
Well, I'm going to take a little personal privilege before I give you the Building and Planning Committee report and hearken you back to, some of you all were in the room, I think, when I made my speech to the board asking to be approved as a nominee for president-elect. And one of the things I said in that speech was that I really looked forward to a day when it was not unusual or not that much of a big deal to see women, people of color, and members of the LGBTQ community in leadership roles at the state bar. And I think if you look to my left and you look around in this room, and when I stood in the back of the room at the new director's orientation, I saw that we have been very successful at making that happen. And I'd like to submit to you all that that doesn't happen by accident. It took intentional acts and things that we as a board did together. And I thank you for the support of the DEI initiatives that happened during my term and that have continued and that will continue to happen. When I embarked on this venture, I spoke to past presidents Martha Dickey, Eduardo Rodriguez, and Lisa Tatum for advice about how to broach the subject and how to have an impact. And they all three said, you need to create something lasting because new presidents come, new focuses come, different things happen, and little by little, this issue will fall by the wayside, and people will begin taking it for granted and not focus on it anymore. So that is why I was very insistent upon there being a standing committee, and I want to thank you all for supporting that. I know what a challenge that was for some and how that continues to be a challenge, especially in this political climate that we live in. And so I want to encourage you all to act as individuals. So you're a leader in your community, and I encourage you to support other people who want to run, encourage them, look around and see other people who have leadership potential. Sign their petitions. When people show up and ask you, will you just sign my petition so I can run for state bar director? Nominate them for Leadership SBOT. Right now we're in that period. How many of you all benefited from Leadership SBOT and that's how you came to be here? So I encourage you all to continue to do that. And I, more than anything, encourage you to go out and be seen and speak to young people. I was really struck by how much an impact it made on people to see someone who looked like them in a leadership role. My favorite thing was going to the law schools and speaking at orientations. And I can't tell you how many times I got stopped by usually a woman, lots of times a Hispanic woman, who said to me, you know what, I think I can do this. I actually had one woman at a law school tell me that I was there on a Thursday, and she told me that she had planned to go home on Friday because she felt like there was no place for her at the law school and that she didn't fit in. And I spoke to her a little bit, and guess what, she stayed, and guess what, she's now graduated and whatever. So don't ever underestimate the value of being seen. And so please go out there and do that. So obviously in times like now where our mandatory bar continues to be under attack, our prime directive is to protect the bar, right? And I think one of the best ways to do that is to keep the bar relevant to everyone, to the membership. And how do we do that? We make everyone feel welcome. There's a place at the table for everyone. And I would challenge you all that our goal should be to make a mandatory bar one which lawyers would voluntarily want to join. I remember that fateful day where we had the special board meeting, and on Zoom, there was a woman lawyer who wrote, and this stayed with me my whole time, and it was very powerful to me, and I want you all to hear this. She wrote on the chat, I have nothing in common with any of those people, and but for the fact that I need to belong to that board to practice law, I wouldn't. And that really, it was like an arrow through my heart. You know, it's like, and here I was looking forward to a leadership role and saying, what do we need to do? So what we need to do is continue to make people feel welcome. And I want to thank you for the honor and privilege of having served as president of the bar. It was not something I aspired to or even dreamed of doing, but it has been the highest honor of my professional career. And thank you all for all of your support as my year ends. And thank you for keeping me along, too. I'm really, as Mary said, you get addicted and you don't want to go away. And so I'm really, thank you for appointing me to continue my work on the Building and Planning Committee. So back to work. So we've had quite a bit of activity on the development of 1415 Lavaca since our last meeting in April. And I'm going to give you a little bit of the highlights. The proposed renderings of the building were shown to the Supreme Court during the budget presentation. I wasn't there, but I have it on good authority that there were several comments about the building, but at the end of it all, the court was generally pleased with the design and the plans that we have for it. With regard to fundraising, staff has been researching fundraising consulting firms to determine whether the State Bar should consider hiring one to assist with the big fundraising effort. They started out with a list of 6 potential groups and eventually narrowed it down and interviewed the 2 top consulting candidates. The staff and the fundraising committee selected FBC Generosity Experts of Austin to assist with the fundraising effort. FBC is a full-service firm that will help us develop a comprehensive major gifts fundraising campaign. They will help us to develop a strategic marketing plan, campaign materials, and will serve as a partner and coach to guide the State Bar's leadership, board, and campaign volunteers throughout the process. The cost of the contract with FBC is $210,000 for the first 12 months, but the contract is structured so that we can terminate it at any point during that year. If, for example, we feel like we've developed the campaign sufficiently after 6 months, we can terminate for the rest of the contract. It'll be paid out piecemeal. This cost is very typical of what you see in the fundraising industry, and remember, they're going to be helping us to raise a significant amount of money. We hope to have the contract executed in the next several weeks so that we can begin the work putting the campaign together over the summer and early fall. The staff has been working very hard and will continue to have meetings with various City of Austin entities to discuss the city codes and requirements needed for the project. You know, it's a historic building. So they will be meeting with the Austin Historical Landmark Commission in September to begin the process of seeking approval of the design of the building. Our goal is to preserve the historic elements of the building, and we want to follow any suggestion they have as best we can. And we will soon need to present the design to the commission in a public hearing and seek their official approval. The staff has also met with Austin Energy Green Building Program Office and will need to comply with standards for the new buildings concerning energy use and consumption of other green standards related to the building. We have to comply with a long checklist of details, and we'll be working with the city throughout the project to make sure we comply with the requirements. This is very interesting to me to be on the other side of working with the city and seeing what this looks like. As you know, we have selected the construction manager at risk for our delivery method. And as we mentioned in April, we sent out an RFQ to a number of construction managers to perform construction manager at risk services. And there were 2 companies that responded to the RFQ, and both our architect and our outside legal counsel have worked with them and hold them in high regard. The second step of the process, the RFP, will be the top selected respondents will be required to submit additional information to the State Bar, including fee proposals and general condition prices. The State Bar will rank the respondents in the order that they provide the best value, and that's air quotes because that has legal value, meaning based on the State Bar's evaluation. Once we receive responses from the RFP, we will conduct interviews with the respondents and make our selection shortly thereafter. And then finally, Chris Ritter is going to be giving a report on the status of tax determination requests to the IRS during our closed session. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Past President Berunda Firth. A couple things. Actually, we're going to hold off for just one moment on the upcoming reports. I believe you folks are here. Okay, we're going to return to President Gibson to present that final award.
You know, it's funny, everybody comes into bar service in unique ways, and the way I came into bar service was that Kelly Frells, who was then the president of this State Bar of Texas, and I officed in the same building. And he ran into me in the parking garage one day and asked me, I think he was hoping to find my husband, Bill Ogden, who's a renowned First Amendment lawyer, but he ran into me instead and asked me to serve on the Advertising Review Committee. So I started serving on the Advertising Review Committee, and that was the year we changed the rule where you could have a pure referring attorney where you didn't do any work, till you had to be responsible for the file. And so we went on a big campaign to educate our members about this change in the rule and why it was important to change and why it was in everybody's best interest to change. And as part of my role on the Advertising Review Committee, I got asked to speak at the Texas Minority Council Program. And I had never even heard of the Texas Minority Council Program. So I went to the program, it was in Houston that year, and I showed up and I was like, wow, usually in CLEs, everyone is seated like you are, in a table, long table across the room. And at the Texas Minority Council program, there are round tables, and people talk to one another. And people largely don't have their faces in their devices. And I thought, this is an amazing group, and I want to be part of it. So I immediately reached out to our Minority Affairs office and put my name in to be on the steering committee, and ultimately had the privileges of serving as the chair of the Texas Minority Council Program. And so my last presidential citation goes to the best minority program in the country, by far and away. Our team on the Texas Minority Council Program, Karen Chevins, Sarah Rich, and Macy Earhart, please come forward so that we can recognize you for your hard work. You guys weren't here for the drill, so our standing spot for photos is here. But before I move on, Shannon Quadros is the immediate one of our incoming directors, is the past chair of the Minority Council Program. Oh, current, he's doing double duty, one more year. So you're a junior chair one year, and then you're the senior chair. So I guess you're in your senior chair, and the program is in Houston this year, right? October in Houston. So if you've never been, you need to. And, on the Budget Committee, we always talk about the fact that the TMCP and the Office of Minority Affairs office is like the smallest office ever, right? It's just you guys. And they do so much work with 3 strong women that we have a debt of gratitude to pay. So join me again in congratulating them.
Okay, it's now 2:30. We are exactly 10 items into a 26-item agenda that still has several action items coming. So we are moving into what I like to call the shake a leg portion of the meeting. Directors, please remember, if each of you in making your reports is a minute or a minute and a half more succinct than you otherwise would be, that saves us 20 minutes. We still have to get 6 o'clock buses, and we have a photo to take. And if you've never participated in a board photo, it can only undermine your confidence in the future of American justice. So with that, we will move to agenda item 11, Executive Committee 11A, Nominations and Elections Subcommittee, past Chair Vargas. And Director Wooten, Chair-elect Wooten, you're on deck.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Nominations and Elections Subcommittee is pleased to report that the 2023 State Bar election season has been successfully completed. In the race for President-elect, Steve Benish of Austin prevailed over Jerry Alexander of Dallas. We wish to congratulate both Steve and Jerry on running such great campaigns and for being such great ambassadors for the State Bar. There were 23,310 attorneys who voted in the election, which is a return rate of 20.87%. For paper ballots, there was an 18% return, and for electronic ballots, there was an 82% return. The percentage of online ballots has slowly increased over the past few years, and we expect it to continue increasing over the next few years. In light of that, we'll continue to monitor these percentages to determine whether we might consider going completely online for our elections. We want everybody, of course, to remember that our goal is to make it easy to vote in elections in order to increase turnout, and using paper ballots offers our members yet another alternative to vote. There were 10 new district directors that were elected. In your board packet of materials in the nominations and elections tab, there are the names of the newly elected board members. There were 3 contested races for director and 7 uncontested races. And we're very excited to have this new group of board members. And that concludes our report. On behalf of the Nominations and Elections Subcommittee, thank you for all of your great work this year.
Any comments from directors? With none, that moves us to agenda item 11B, Policy Manual Subcommittee, Chair-elect Wooten.
The Policy Manual Subcommittee has one change to recommend to you today. If you're looking at the PDF, it's on page 22. It's a redlined document there. As many of you may know, our president, president-elect, and immediate past president get an administrative stipend during their 3 years of that presidential rotation. The stipend was added back in 2007 for the president and president-elect. The immediate past president stipend was added in 2011. During those prior discussions about what to do for state bar presidential people, there was also discussion about extending this same stipend to TYLA members in the presidential rotation. A commitment was made at that time to then TYLA leadership that the state bar would consider in future years extending the same stipend to the TYLA people as applies to the State Bar of Texas people. Many years have gone on. It's time, perhaps past time, to get this done. So as you see in your materials, the stipend amounts for the TYLA presidents will be the same as they are for the state bar president members in rotation. And these have been the numbers since the program started. You can see the numbers in the red line. I won't repeat them here to save us some time. So the motion on behalf of the Board Policy Manual Subcommittee is that we approve the proposed changes in section 3.07.08 of the Board Policy Manual related to stipend for administrative expenses.
Coming from a committee, no second is required. Is there discussion from directors? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We're now going to take agenda item number 21 out of order. That is going to be the report from our Texas Supreme Court liaison, Senior Justice Lehrman.
Thank you so much, Chairman Baruch. I'm so happy to be here today. I want to, as usual, thank you on behalf of the court. We're so appreciative of all of you for the work that you do. We know how many volunteer hours are involved in this important work, and we truly value your service more than I can say. I also want to thank the staff. I can never go on enough about how wonderful the State Bar of Texas staff is. As I frequently say, and much to Trey's chagrin, he answers every time I call, and often it's not times that are, let's say, early in the evening. So thank you all very, very much for all you do. We certainly appreciate it. I want to first of all start out with, we have the wonderful privilege of now having a deputy to help me in this important work, because it is so important on the court. So now we have a deputy Supreme Court liaison, and that is the Honorable Evan Young. I also want to recognize an outgoing public member, Dr. Greg Fuller. Is Dr. Fuller in the room? He's had the honor of serving us for the last year, and he certainly has enjoyed the work. He's going to have to leave because he is now an officer with the Texas Medical Association. And following him is Dr. Martin Toby of Dallas, also a physician. I think it's so important that our two professions join together to learn about each other. So thank you for your important work, Dr. Fuller, and thank you so much for coming aboard, Dr. Toby. So we've been quite busy on the court. I must say we cleared our docket again by the end of the term for the 10th consecutive year, and I know that those of you who are litigators like to hear that. Every session, the legislature directs the court to adopt certain rules, as you all know, and this year was no exception. In fact, this year, the legislature passed 30 bills that require us to do certain things and update certain rules. So a lot of the things that you see we do and you think, oh my goodness, why are they doing that? You need to go across the street from us because it's the legislature that's telling us to do those things. We're working on some of these bills internally. Others we've referred to our Supreme Court Advisory Committee, SCAC, and the Committee for Disciplinary Rules and Referendum. Some of these bills are not that difficult and won't require a lot of input. Some, like the new business court bill, and also what Chief Justice was Heck was talking about this morning about the paraprofessionals, will need a lot of input. It's a lot of work. It's going to be a very, very, very tedious and difficult task, and we want to get it right. And that has to do with what we're going to decide to do in the professional realm, and also what we're going to do with regard to the business courts. So please, please, if you're interested in this, please get involved. Please let us know. Please come and talk to me or talk to Justice Young and let us know about the level of involvement that you would like to take on, because we really sincerely want your input in this. We certainly don't want to get these things wrong. Court rules, we have some rules dealing to do with cyberbullying and wills. On the form side, the court has adopted 2 sets of forms in response to this legislation from prior sessions. In March, we finalized a form application for injunctive relief to stop cyberbullying, and in May, we finalized some will forms. With regard to the rules of judicial administration, we finalized Rule 7, which was part of the electronic participation rules package. You'll recall that this rule has long provided that a district or statutory county court judge must consider using mail and telephone in lieu of personal appearances. We have now updated this to account for technological advances. Also, Rule of Judicial Administration 10 was amended to make clear that local courts cannot require the use of a particular form because that could be a barrier to access to justice. TRAP 34.5 gave final approval to an amendment to require the trial court clerk to automatically include any supersedious bond in the clerk's record without having to have a special designation by a party. This change took effect on May 1st. In May, we amended TRAP and the rules of judicial administration to address the use of restraints in juvenile proceedings and appeals from a juvenile court's order certifying a child to stand trial as an adult. These are things that had been needed for quite some time, and we did finalize that project. And in May, the court proposed amendments to TRAP 6 in response to a request from the State Bar Court Rules Committee. Trap 6.5 governs motions to withdraw, includes a number of hoops council must jump through in order to withdraw, like notifying the party of upcoming deadlines and hearings. The Rules Committee pointed out the associates leaving a firm shouldn't have to jump through these hoops, since the rules are really geared at the situation where we don't want to leave a party left unrepresented. So we agreed to narrow Trap 6.5 to apply to lead counsel only. However, that being said, we felt it was important to encourage associates to notify the court of their withdrawal. So we added Trap 6.4C, encouraging non-lead counsel to file non-representation letters when they withdraw from a case. We've done lots of other things I'm sure you're aware of. Can't go into the detail now, but if you all want to pick our brains, Justice Young and Justice and me, I'll be here for the rest of the meeting. And again, thank you. When I say thank you, I'm not just saying it. We really appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you, Justice Lehrman. Any remarks from directors? Seeing none, agenda item 12, the Audit and Finance Committee, from the award-winning and acclaimed Director Calvillo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you know, I really enjoy presenting the report of the Audit and Finance Committee, and this is an especially astounding one, but I'll get started. So there are three things we're going to cover. One is the financial results of the State Bar of Texas' first 11 months of this fiscal year. Then we're going to discuss a refinement to the business expense reimbursement policies, and then we're going to discuss the first word in audit and finance, audit. So let's start off with the financial results for the first 11 months. Things are good. The general fund is the primary fund of the State Bar's financial enterprise, and as you can see, things are good. When revenues exceed your expenses, things are good, and things are very good for the first 11 months, as you can see, to the tune of $5 million. There's a lot of reasons for that. One is that this particular year saw the investment income increase as interest rates rose. So did our investment increase, and then also that healthy excess finds its way into the expenses. The expenses for this. Oops, I'm sorry. I should have looked. What I'd like to point out about the expenditures is that the biggest expense that we have, oh, this is revenue, sorry. So much for bragging about what a great job I did, right? So the revenues, the important thing in this slide is to notice that the first bar graph there talks about the membership dues. Many times our membership thinks that the bar is funded and its operations are funded primarily by the dues, and they are. However, less than half are represented by the dues. We wouldn't be able to provide the level of service that the State Bar does without all of these other categories, and in particular, Texas Bar CLE. That revenue item is generated by the volunteer work of those lawyers, primarily, that present the CLEs for which lawyers pay for that service. So it's important to keep that in mind, because the membership dues, if we were to rely solely on membership dues, we would not have the level of enterprise that we do, and not be able to deliver the level of service that we've historically enjoyed. And that's going to be important as we talk about the graying of the bar in the future. Those dues are going to be less and less, and so more and more pressure is going to be placed on having additional sources of income. So again, we'll look at that. So now we can look at the expenditures. The biggest expenses, of course, are those around public protection and professional development, as it should be, because that is what we do. You'll see that the board commitments, that blue that blue graph, that's the last one. That one reflects the purchase of the 1415 Lavaca building that we're hearing about earlier from former President Belinda Firth. That's what that spike is in that last category. The bar enjoys a robust and rigorous budgetary process. And for those of you that are joining the bar or joining the board of directors for the first time, I would commend to you to look at the budget. Spend some time looking at it. If you want to know about the operation of the bar and where things go, they always tell you, follow the money. Well, in this case, follow the budgetary process in particular, because hundreds and hundreds of hours are devoted to developing that budget. The budget that is published in the Bar Journal is chock full of information to exactly what is operating and what fuels the bar's activities. So spend some time looking at that. I would commend you to do that. So our budgetary practices are very conservative in nature, in that we want to make sure that we have as close to a positive budget as we can, as close to a break-even budget as we can, and so that you'll see that our budget would have provided for, as of 11 months, a slight deficit of $31,000. It's not too bad considering that it's 11 months and it's a $43 million budget. The actual budget, of course, as we started earlier, is very positive. Our revenues exceeded our expenditures by $5 million, and so that's a very good thing. But again, I would commend to you to look at that budgetary process, because there's a lot of time and effort devoted to that. The second thing is the business expense reimbursement policy. There was a slight refinement to the policy, the reimbursement policy, and those refinements involved basically some common sense things. Number one, you can't get reimbursed prior to the event. You can't be reimbursed for expenditures relating to event prior to the event actually occurring. That makes sense. The second thing is that staff was the way the reimbursement policy was written, they only had 15 days, whereas we have 45 days to submit their reimbursement policy. So we're just equalizing that and giving them the chance to take that envelope that Trey was talking about. We're giving him 45 days to turn in that envelope, and as well as the rest of the staff. So that does not require a vote from the board. That was presented to the Audit and Finance Committee. We evaluated, we talked about it, we adopted it and approved it. So that's the second thing. The third thing is the word audit. We talked about that being Audit and Finance, the first word in Audit and Finance Committee, and that's important because what that shows is that the State Bar of Texas follows best practices. An enterprise of this size, should follow the best practices, and those best practices including having an audit, an internal audit and an external audit. The external audit, you can say those financial results that we just discussed. Okay, can we rely on those numbers? Are those numbers prepared more or less the way they should be? We can rely on that and say that because of an external audit, that basic process has been reviewed. And yes, we can believe that they're fairly stated. The numbers are a good representation. This what we're going to talk about now is the internal audit. The internal audit involves directing a professional microscope on the operations of the bar to make sure that best practices are being followed, all internal controls are being adhered to. And because the State Bar is such a sprawling enterprise, they have to break it down in various groups, various divisions of the State Bar. It takes 5 years to review each of those divisions, each of those sections. And so today I'm going to invite Darlene Brown to come in and discuss just a few of those and the results of their internal audit so far.
Good afternoon. As he stated, my name is Darlene Brown, and I'm partner with McConnell Jones Enterprise Risk Services. And I'm presenting a summary of the 3 audits we did this year and the status of prior audits. And so I'm going to try and make this quick. I did hear the warning. Please be fast. So we are going to present Public Funds Investment Act, the attorney compliance audit, and also follow up on prior audit findings and membership. Before we get to the audit results, I think it's really important for you to understand some of the terminology I'm going to be using. First one is we define a finding as an internal control weakness or non-compliance with required policy, laws, or regulations. These are the things that are going to get you in trouble if they're not in place. We define an improvement opportunity as an area where the internal control or process is effective, but it can be done just a little bit better. As you see the next slides, you'll see that we have 0 findings to report this year, but we do have some improvement opportunities. Additionally, every function or business process, even with your own entities, you have risks associated with it. And you want to put internal controls in place to manage those risks. But every internal control you have costs money to implement, right? So we assign risk ratings to it so that you can determine where you want to place your limited resources. The first risk rating is the inherent risk rating, and that's the impact to an organization if the controls are not in place or they're not working. This is the risk that we assign prior to performing any audit activities. The residual risk is our assessment of the remaining risk or likelihood of a negative event occurring if the internal controls and processes in place are working. So this is, again, this is assigned after our audit activities. So the first one that we're reporting on is Public Funds Investment Act compliance. This is your investments. This is an audit that we perform every year. We look at the investment transactions to make sure they're recorded accurately, completely, and timely. We look at investment reconciliations, investment reporting, the required investment officer training, and compliance with your investment policies, which align with the PFIA requirements. So in total, we looked at 27 requirements and we had 0 findings. We rated internal controls as effective and noted best practice processes still exist. So our second audit that we performed this year was in the attorney compliance area. The objective of this audit was to assess management controls and processes over advertising reviews. We also looked at the processes and controls in place to ensure confidentiality of information that's shared for the CAP program. It's important to note here that we did not actually look at CAP records. We looked at the process to make sure everything's confidential. So our focus areas were assisting attorneys in the efforts to comply with lawyer advertising rules, the CAP program, and then processes, make sure that they were updated to reflect the new information portal that was implemented. Okay, we had 0 findings. We identified 5 best practice opportunities to enhance controls. We rated the internal controls overall as effective. The best processes that we noted were the way that the collecting accuracy and relevancy and timely advertising review information. We also noted that there's really best practices in communicating information about the legal system through brochures, documents, and web pages. And then we also have best practices in the logging, tracking, and reporting of CAP activities. Overall, remember I talked to you about inherent risk versus residual. So the inherent risk on this area was high, but after we assessed the processes and controls, you have a low residual risk. That means there's little likelihood that something's to go wrong in this area. So we were tasked with looking at 9 questions to assess controls. I'm just going to highlight a couple of them. One was have our staff updated and documented their processes. Second one is what is the education process to communicate the advertising rules? Third, what processes are in place to ensure information provided to the advertising review committee is complete, accurate, relevant, and timely? Does State Bar's Client Attorney Assistance Program have resources needed? Does the CAP have brochures, documents, or web pages that are updated and accurate? And are the activities logged, tracked, and reported? So 0 findings, 5 improvement opportunities that we identified. Consider displaying the links for the Texas disciplinary rules of professional conduct and advertising review page. More prominently on the website, right now it's kind of buried, you really have to look for it. Second one was consider creating an advertising review checklist to document all the steps that are actually completed. The third is to document procedures to define advertising review processes. Everybody right now is pretty seasoned, they know what to do, what sequence, but if you have new staff, it helps to have these procedures documented. We also say update the advertising review webpage to include some interpretive comments relevant to the new rules and document operating procedures to define the CAP processes. So the next audit was membership function, and as you saw, there's a lot of revenue that flows through membership. So our audit objective here was to assess the controls and processes to make sure that the membership department processes attorney suspensions and reinstatements in accordance with the rules. We also looked at controls around the collection of annual dues, recording and reconciling those payments, and also the reporting accuracy. We focused on, again, the member account data accuracy, the administrative suspension process, the revenue collections, refund process, the membership status reporting, and prior audits findings that we had. Okay, and we had no findings and 2 improvement opportunities. We rated controls as effective, and we have best practices identified, which includes the way late fees are assessed, projecting membership revenue so that your finance department can get those budgets accurate as possible. The receipt and reconciliation of membership payments, it's spot on. And then calculating the membership growth trends, notifying members of the collection of membership fees, and addressing potential issues. Okay, we were asked to validate 13 questions surrounding controls, highlight a few, looking at is the data accurate? Are penalties and late fees assessed in accordance with policy? Are the projections that are provided to finance based on an appropriate methodology? So we dug into that methodology, and it's a good one. And then making sure that your payments received are reconciled, not only to what was expected to be collected, but through the PayPal account, the bank deposits, and then what's actually recorded on your financial system. Another area that's really important is to look at refunds to make sure that they're valid refunds and they're reviewed and approved. And then the process is to look at the accounts themselves. So our 2 improvement opportunities were configure the State Bar member profile webpage to display something to the effect of the status, whether it's retired, not practicing, or non-law related employment. The second one is to consider processing reinstatements in the manner that it's easy to determine the amounts owed and provide an invoice for all charges and require payment through the payment portal. Okay, so the last report that I have is every year we follow up on our prior audit findings to see how management's doing in closing those gaps. So this year we looked at 14 prior audit findings. 10 of those have been fully addressed and resolved, and 4 are still in progress, and those 4 in progress are related to just documenting the process through written procedures. So controls are in place, just now need to catch up with the documentation. So these reports, they all reflect clean audits and all reflect that you have internal control. So these areas that we looked at, you really should not have too many concerns. And this concludes our report for today. I want to thank you all for your time, your attention, and your continued support of the internal audit function. It's a very important function to have because we are your eyes and ears. Thank you.
So now on behalf of the Audit and Finance Committee, I move to approve the internal audit report from McConnell and Jones for the fiscal year 2023.
Coming from a committee, no second is required. Are there comments from directors? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. You got one.
Make it quick. So we talked about the word audit. That's the internal audit, the professional focus on the inner workings of the bar. We also have the external audit that is continuing. That's the focus on the financial statements. That work is continuing, and at your January meeting, the final report for the fiscal year ending 2023 will be available for you at that time. The McConnell & Jones firm will continue their professional microscope on the internal operations consistent with their 5-year plan. And next year, they'll be reviewing the Public Funds Investment Act compliance, an audit of Communications Division, and an audit of the Finance Division. Let me just conclude by saying thank you to the members of the Audit and Finance Committee. You guys, by being such an impressive group of folks, you know who you are. You nudged me to be a little bit better prepared than perhaps I might otherwise be. So thank you so much for your penetrating questions during our meetings. And then lastly, let me also extend a thank you to Tracy Jarrett for these last couple of years that I've served in this capacity, for your patience, for your professionalism. And I think each of you can rest assured that the State Bar is in good hands financially and following best practices. Thank you very much. This concludes my report, Mr. Chair.
I think we have one comment from our executive director.
It's important for the board to know, I don't know if it's normal or customary to have a good relationship with your auditor. You know, usually when people hear audit or auditor, you can go into freak out mode. But we are in a 5-year plan working with McConnell & Jones under the direction of Darlene, and she is a true professional, and her team are true professionals. They work hard, they're thorough, they're thoughtful, they ask tough questions, they make us work, but that's what you want them to do, and that's what I want them to do. But their professionalism is just second to none. I just want to make sure that's on the record. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That brings us to agenda item 13, Administration Committee Director Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm pleased to give a report on behalf of the Administration Committee. We've got 4 voting items on today's agenda, so I'm going to move through these as quickly as possible, heeding the instructions of Mr. Chair. We received 4 sets of recommended proposed rule changes from the State Bar Rules Committee. These involve Rules of Civil Procedure 21D, 21AE, a new rule, proposed Rule 21E, and Texas Rule of Appellate Procedures, Texas Rules of Appellate Procedure 9.5 and 49.5. The proposed changes, of course, are all in your board packet starting at page 114, and you may want to refer to those during my report because we're going to be moving quickly. So the Administration Committee met 3 times to consider these rule changes: February 13th, March 22nd, and June 1st. That work culminated in a June 1st vote, unanimously voting in favor of recommending to the board that we adopt all proposed changes, we approve referring them, rather, I should say, to the Texas Supreme Court for further action. So if these rules are in fact referred from the board to the Supreme Court, the court may, and I would expect probably would, refer them to the Supreme Court Advisory Committee, which you heard mentioned earlier today, for further action. Supreme Court would decide whether to adopt any changes after any further work on behalf of the Supreme Court by SCAC. And then, of course, as is our usual process, there would be an opportunity for public comment on any proposed rules. So with that in mind, again, I said 4 voting items. The first one, the first proposal is a change to Texas Rule of Civil Procedure 21D and 21AE. These rules relate to the filing and serving of pleadings and motions, and 21D relates to certificates of service. So in the proposal, Rule 21D, 21D is amended to add language under subsection A, which has to do with certificates of service, to clarify that proof of service and a certificate of service are not required for documents served through the electronic filing manager, or e-filing system, as provided in the rule, elsewhere in the rules. And so if a document is not served through the electronic filing manager, the rule would remain the same, that a certificate of service would have to be implemented. A companion change is under 21AE. It relates to proof of service. And in that situation, the language requiring an attorney or party to certify compliance with the rule in writing over signature, in other words, the old school certificate of service, would be struck. And so it's refined essentially for consistency between and among that set of rules. So quickly, the reasons for this proposed change, most of us in this room know that we've had mandatory e-filing in our state now for over a decade. More recently, in the last few years, the e-filing system was updated to provide for an automatic certificate of service with court filings. And the e-filing system now actually provides better evidence than a manual certificate of service that has to be done at the time of the filing. So you're certifying in advance, more or less, which is sort of an internal inconsistency in our rules. The e-filing system provides better evidence via a third party of whether opposing counsel actually received the document. You've heard your stories about these things. Service through the e-filing service provider is accurate, it's reliable. And if, as I mentioned, if a party such as a pro se party does not e-file the document, then a certificate of service would still be required. But this proposed rule change does do away with certificates of service in documents that are filed through the electronic filing system. It's worth noting that in December of 2018, the federal rules were amended to remove the requirement of a certificate of service when a document is e-filed through that system. So this change would bring the state rules in line with the federal rules, in addition to adopting some efficiencies and practical benefits for parties filing. So again, the Court Rules Committee voted to approve this recommendation and presented it to the Administration Committee, which on June 1st, 2023, voted to approve it for referral to the Supreme Court. And so, Mr. Chair, at this time, I move on behalf of the Administration Committee that the board approve the referral to the State Bar Rules Committee, the referral of the State Bar Rules Committee, rather, proposed amendments to Texas Rules of Civil Procedure 21D and 21AE to the Supreme Court of Texas for consideration.
Coming from a committee, no second is required. Is there discussion from directors? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
The second rule amendment proposal for voting is Texas Rule of Civil Procedure 21E. This is actually a proposed new rule that relates to orders being filed and served on parties. Currently, there's no requirement that court orders be distributed to the parties whenever they are signed. This has caused confusion, busy work, and inefficiencies for practitioners and court staff around the state. Parties have missed deadlines because they did not receive notice of a court order, including final judgments. To address these concerns, the proposed Texas Rule of Civil Procedure 21E states, and I'll paraphrase, in addition to any other delivery requirements from any other rule, every order signed by a court in a case must be promptly filed of record with the clerk. The clerk must distribute or make available the signed order to the parties in a manner consistent with Rule 21A. In addition to some court opinions that talk about this problem that the rule is intended to address, the issue received some attention when the legislature considered a bill that would have required the courts deliver all orders entered either in person or electronically, not necessarily electronically, which is what the previous rule would set out to do. Unfortunately, this bill died in the Senate Jurisprudence Committee, so for now, a change to this issue must come through the rules and rule amendments. So the Court Rules Committee voted to approve this recommendation and presented it to the Administration Committee. As I mentioned, on June 1st, the Administration Committee voted to approve it for referral to the Texas Supreme Court. This time, on behalf of the Administration Committee, I move that the board approve the referral of the State Bar Rules Committee proposed rules, Texas Rule of Civil Procedure 21E, to the Supreme Court of Texas for consideration.
Coming from a committee, no second is required. Any discussion from directors? All in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
The third rule is Texas Rule of Appellate Procedure 9.5. This is the proof of service and certificate of service rule, parallel in the appellate rules to what we've already discussed under the first bundle that's in the rules of civil procedure. Essentially, it adopts the exact same language. I had the privilege of working with the Rules Committee to make sure that we had this consistency between the rules of civil procedure and the rules of appellate procedure, and encourage them to submit it as one bundle so that this body would vote one time and put it in front of the Supreme Court and SCAC at the same time. The proposal essentially mirrors almost exactly the language that we've already approved in the first voting item. In other words, a certificate of service generated by an electronic filing manager is proof of service. And no certificate of service would be required when filing documents under the Texas Rules of Appellate Procedure. So again, the Court Rules Committee voted to approve this recommendation and presented it to the Administration Committee. On June 1st, the Administration Committee voted unanimously to approve it for referral to the Texas Supreme Court and submits to this body for that final vote. Mr. Chair, on behalf of the Administration Committee, I again move that the board approve the referral of the State Bar Court Rules Committee to the Texas Rule of Appellate Procedure 9.5 to the Supreme Court of Texas.
Coming from a committee, no second is required. Any discussion from directors? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries.
I'm not used to talking this fast, y'all. The last, fourth and final item is Texas Rule of Appellate Procedure 49.3. If you're interested, you can find this on page 152 of your packet. It's a little different issue, but I think it should be fairly non-controversial. The proposal is to revise Rule 49.3 to clarify that any justice who participated in a panel decision can participate in deciding a motion for a hearing from that decision unless the justice is disqualified or recused or is no longer a member of the court and does not remain eligible for assignment to the court to participate in that motion for a hearing. Rule 41.2, which governs en banc proceedings, already contains this sort of requirement. The addition essentially is just a clause clarifying that the justice cannot participate because he or she is disqualified or recused or is no longer a member of the court and does not remain eligible for assignment to the court. Again, harmonizing Rule 49.3 with Rule 41.2 and clarifying to make sure that everyone understands the conditions under which a justice would not be eligible to serve under either rule. So the Rules Committee approved this recommendation and presented it to the Administration Committee. As I've said, on June 1, the Administration Committee voted to approve sending this rule change up to the board for full vote. Mr. Chair, on behalf of the Administration Committee, I move that the board approve the referral of State Bar Rules Committee to Texas Rule of Appellate Procedure 49.3 to the Supreme Court of Texas for consideration.
Coming from a committee, no second required. Any discussion from directors? All in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Mr. Chair, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Director Smith. And as always, on behalf of our entire board, a heartfelt thanks to the State Bar Court Rules Committee for its excellent, always exemplary hard work. That brings us to agenda item 13B, Performance Measures and Strategic Planning Subcommittee, Director Cavazos.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The State Bar Act requires the bar to develop a long-range plan that includes measurable goals and a system of performance measures. The statute also requires the bar to review and update the plan on a regular schedule. In compliance with these requirements, on January 27th, the board approved updates to the bar's strategic plan goals. Our next task was to review and update the performance measures that correspond with those goals. The subcommittee met on May 18th and June 1st to review and update the performance measures. Our suggested updates are before the board for action today. Included with your meeting materials is a PDF of the State Bar's performance measures. The proposed updates are highlighted in yellow. As you can see, the updates include additional performance measures related to website views and downloads of starter kit materials for local bar associations, resources provided to lawyers in areas not supported by the local bars, the number of work-life balance programs provided by the bar, member satisfaction with the State Bar, usage of educational material related to the attorney discipline system, the number of applicants for the Texas Opportunity and Justice Incubator, and the number of contested races for district director and section membership among newly licensed attorneys. I wanted to thank the subcommittee for their hard work, Liz Cantu, David Courageous, Lawrence Morales, Mary Scott, Alex Stelly for their work on this proposal. On behalf of the subcommittee, I move approval of the updated performance measures based on the updated State Bar strategic plan, Mr. Chair.
Coming from a committee, no second is required. Any discussion from directors? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries.
That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Cavazos. Agenda item 14, DCAP Subcommittee, Director Toby.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have both a general report from the committee and one action item. The general report is that we're going to have a very busy 2023-2024 bar year with a proposed rules referendum in all likelihood, with a minimum of 6 rules and maybe as many as 10 to 13 rules that will be on the ballot for the bar to either approve or not, and hopefully approve. The specific item I have today is a proposed amendment to Rule 1.08A, and that is the rule dealing with lawyers doing business with their clients. Existing Rule 1.08A has a 3-part test that a lawyer must satisfy to have the ability to do business with their clients. The proposed rule, which is modeled on the ABA rule, the similar ABA rule, basically clarifies all 3 elements and really spells out in some detail what a lawyer needs to do. The lawyer needs to present the proposal in writing to the client. The client needs to either have independent counsel or have a recommendation from the lawyer to seek independent counsel. The client then needs to propose or send back a confirmation in writing of the client's consent to the business transaction. And basically, it also has to consent to the lawyer's involvement in the transaction. So I think this is a good proposed rule change that will bring Texas in conformity with the model rule and all the other states that have adopted model rules as their rules of ethical conduct. So on behalf of the DCAP committee, I would move the board to approve the proposed amendment to Rule 1.08A of the Texas Disciplinary Rules of Professional Conduct relating to conflicts of interest regarding prohibited transactions.
Coming from a committee, no second is required. Any comments from directors? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Just one final thank you to this year's committee, which did a lot of work, and a special shout out to departing directors Lydia Mount and Todd Smith for their hard work, not only on this committee, but for this board at large. Thank you. That concludes our report, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Director Toby. Brings us to agenda item 14B, Client Security Fund Subcommittee, Director Forbes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Client Security Fund Subcommittee met on June 13, 2023. The subcommittee reviewed 35 applications, approved for a total of $207,832.33. For the bar year, the subcommittee has reviewed 198 applications, approved 137 applications
for a total of $889,449.72. I would like to thank the State Bar staff, Claire Reynolds and Jean Major, the subcommittee members, and my vice chair, Lydia Mount, for all their help and support in making this year a success. That is the end of my report, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Director Forbes. That brings us to agenda item 15, Member Services and Education Committee. 15A, New Directors Orientation Subcommittee. Director Pickleball Huddleston will present that report. Director Scumbeto on deck.
For those of you who don't understand the reference, I tore my Achilles playing pickleball, so apparently it can be very dangerous. All right, the new director's orientation took place this morning for the new board members, liaisons, and section representatives. We have 18 new board members. They'll be sworn in tomorrow morning, so I'll keep it short by saying, please welcome all of our new board members. We're really excited to have them, and that concludes my report.
Agenda item 15B, Insurance Member Benefits Subcommittee. Director Scumbeto. Director McDonald, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Board Chair. Real quickly, starting out with the Texas Bar Private Insurance Exchange update. There's big news in the insurance world. In the past, the Texas Insurance Code did not allow solo attorneys to join group health insurance programs. That has changed, and beginning this September, or maybe soon thereafter, Texas solo attorneys will be able to join the members' health plan that was developed by Exchange Administrators Member Benefits, Inc. According to Insurance Exchange personnel, the members' health plan will be the only group plan available for solos, and will provide those solos with access to PPOs that previously they did not have access to. A customer satisfaction survey was conducted this year and showed that 71% of the respondents were satisfied with the administrator's enrollment process. Now, it's worth noting that the typical marketplace satisfaction is below 50%, so that's probably something worth touting. Total product enrollments in the insurance exchange grew by 33% this fiscal year, from 72,236 to 96,080. Regarding non-insurance member benefits, the non-insurance engagement continues to grow. New vendors are constantly being sought, and a September survey is planned to measure membership demands for additional categories of non-insurance benefits. So things continue to go well on the member benefits front, and as always, you can see those benefits and other services at texasbar.com/benefits. That concludes my report, Mr. Chair.
Any comments from directors? Director Fisher.
While the rest of the reference to law was fighting against, I was promoting the health bill, which didn't pass. And so I'm wondering what the bars can do, or if they could do plan that what's going to happen. I'm not sure it's already decided. West Pack. Does that have any effect on
Do you know the answer? I don't think we have an answer to that right now, Director Fisher. I don't have an answer for that right now, but I understand who you're asking, but of course you're speaking to the chair and I'm speaking back. Thank you, Director Fisher. That brings us to agenda item 15C, Professional Development Subcommittee, Director McDonald.
Thank you, Chairman Baruch. The Professional Development Committee and CLE committees met on May 4th to discuss topics for CLE programs and publications. As a result of that discussion, Texas Bar CLE has added a new course on the legal and ethical issues involved with generative AI, as was discussed earlier. With the help of the CLE committee focus groups, Texas Bar CLE is starting production on a new online product called Practice Skills Short Takes. It is designed to help new lawyers learn essential practice skills in key practice areas. These online tutorials will be short in duration and incorporate learning tools such as demonstrations, checklists, templates, and testing. First topics to be rolled out will be estate planning fundamentals, starting with provisions and execution, durable and medical power of attorneys, and other incapacity documents. Texas Bar Books launched the Texas Criminal Pattern Jury Charges online on November 1st, 2022. The Criminal PJCs is the first publication offered solely in an online format. And the Law Practice Management Committee is teaming up with the State Bar College to hold a reception at the annual meeting, which is tomorrow. They're having a reception tomorrow afternoon. Members of the Law Practice Management Committee and the Texas Bar College will be there. And the reception will be open to all annual meeting attendees to promote the bar's law practice management resources and encourage attendees to consider joining the Texas Bar College and provide information on the bar's succession planning resources. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Director McDonald. Director Fisher, our next item is agenda item 16, which will be the Public Services and Education Committee, Affordable Legal Services Subcommittee. And you do have an action item if you'd come up. I choose to be on.
Okay, and then for the new members, when you act as chair, and I've chaired different things in the past, you're not really supposed to be an advocate. So I've had to be polite and listen to opinions that are patently ridiculous, and I feel for you. But at any rate, what we did do was we approved a plan that people had worked on a long time for indigent criminal defense to make sure that people, when they go to court, they're given a fair chance to show what they earn and what they can afford, and that their probation and punishment reflects that. I wanted to there was no prosecutors on our committee, and I tried to get hold of Kenda because I respect her opinion, but she was like in Spain and Portugal. How could you, you know? But at any rate, so if you've had a chance to look at it, we don't need a second, and so I move that we approve of that.
Coming from a committee, no second is required. Any discussion from directors? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Oh, there is discussion. Who?
You want to make that amendment?
Did you have a comment? No. All right. So seeing no discussion from directors, all in favor, please say aye. All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you, Director Fisher. Agenda item 17, the report from our section representatives to the board committee. Director Cardenas.
I'd like to begin the report by thanking Chairman Baruch. It was his initiative and his encouragement this year to make substantive and informative section reports. Many of us, obviously all of us are members of sections, but we also don't know what the other sections are doing. And the idea behind it is that this board can be more informed as to the importance of the sections to the State Bar, as well as the importance of the State Bar to the sections in this, if you will, symbiotic relationship, which aids in the governance and implementation of the State Bar's mission. And in that regard, we covered, beginning with our first meeting in McAllen, the many pro bono projects and programs and hours that are implemented by our sections to the citizens of Texas. And then in the second meeting, we talked about some of the special projects, the internships, scholarships, and grants that the sections provide. And then in Waco, we talked a little bit about the publications, some of them award-winning publications that these sections put out, as well as CLEs. And today, I briefly highlight what's going on with respect to the annual meeting. Out of the 48 sections, 32 are actually participating in the annual meeting this week. Some of the highlights are the computer and technology section is putting on the adaptable lawyer track. There's an all-day program tomorrow, which is a big draw from the business and corporate counsel section. The litigation section will have a half-day CLE tomorrow, as well as the induction of Steve Sussman as a Texas legal legend. And then the diversity forum is co-sponsored by the 5 affinity sections. And then on Friday, the litigation section will continue to support the annual meeting as a sponsor. The judicial section will be sponsoring the bench bar breakfast, and the family law section is a sponsor of the general session luncheon. The LGBT section is offering a full day of programming on Friday, and we congratulate them as they are also celebrating their 25th anniversary as a section. And then there's a full day of legislative programs, updates from all the sections on Friday as well. And in the area of breaking news, some of us already know, but our longstanding director of the sections department, Tracy Knuckles, who has served this state bar for over 25 years, has announced her retirement effective on July 31st. For many of us who have served on section councils or as chairs, I know for myself, Tracy is invaluable. She's highly informed of what's going on. She'll definitely tell you what her opinion is, and is guided everyone through the process from the Council of Chairs meetings, budgets, and everything that they need to do to be a positive and productive section. We will miss Tracy. That's a lot of institutional knowledge, but I'm sure that I know that Trey and the executive team are on top of this with respect to the succession of who's going to fill those shoes. But this is something that I respectfully recommend to this board and the future boards to keep an eye on. The sections department needs to be strong, needs to be well-staffed. They've got a staff of 3, and they also have dedicated accounting people from the accounting department to help all the sections with their budgets and their books and records. Mr. Chairman, it's been a high honor to serve as a section representative to this board. I thank all of you. It's been great to meet so many people. I've had the great opportunity to serve under 3 wonderful chairmen, Chairman Jin, Chairman Vargas, and Chairman Baruch. My only regret is that being a big believer that there should be more women in leadership roles, that I won't serve under Madam Chair Wooten. Thank you all very much. That concludes my report.
Any comments from directors? I would just echo the sentiment. Take some time. If you're a new director, if you're new particularly to State Bar leadership, take some time over the next couple of days to visit some of the section programs and see what our sections are doing, because that's really to represent your constituents effectively. You need to know that. That's where most of our members interact with the bar, is through the sections. And there's some wonderful CLE. I understand Friday morning there's going to be an utterly brilliant presentation on the history of the Supreme Court's abortion jurisprudence. I know nothing about who the presenter is, but I'm just told it's going to be off the charts. I apologize, I missed an item, so we're going to go back to agenda item 15D, the report from the Technology Oversight Subcommittee. Director Tolshin.
I have no report, thank you.
And the chair wishes to thank the multiple people who messaged me to tell me I had missed that agenda item. Agenda item 18, Commission for Lawyer Discipline, Chief Disciplinary Counsel Report. Bobby Ramirez will present that report to us.
Hi, good afternoon. On behalf of the Commission and the CDC, allow me to provide some statistics for you regarding the fourth quarter. For the fourth quarter, which basically comprises March 1st through 2023 through May 31st, 2023, 113 complaints were resolved through 98 sanctions. Of those sanctions, there were 10 disbarments, 4 resignations in lieu of discipline, 26 suspensions, 7 public reprimands, 31 private reprimands, and 20 grievance referral programs, or GRP. For the entire period of time, there were 397 complaints resolved through 316 sanctions, $265,620 in attorney's fees. Revenue were collected during that time frame. Thank you for allowing me to present the report. I appreciate it. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Ramirez. Agenda item 19, report from the President of the Texas Young Lawyers Association, Michael Ritter.
Dearly beloved, we're gathered here today to celebrate the holy, sorry, I pulled out the wrong speech. I hate when that happens. There we go. Good afternoon, everyone. It's bittersweet to give my last report to this board on the Texas Young Lawyers Association. This year, TYLA has just had a fantastic and wonderful year. By the numbers, since the beginning of the bar year, we've completed and/or updated 33 resources to directly advance the state bars and TYLA's purpose of promoting the role of lawyers in serving the public as well as serving our members. We connected over 25,000 teachers directly with our educational resources this year. And we also connected 1,415 Texas attorneys to our mental health resources addressing stress, anxiety, depression, and thoughts of suicide with resources on our wellness hub. We had with our wellness video promotions over 58,000 views, 31,000 of which actually watched the videos. In addition to those 1,400 who actually access the website and those resources. We also increased our social media followership and fans by 3,600, had a total of over 3 million impressions for our 1,200 social media posts, and we reached over 2.6 million social media users. Our board has put in collectively thousands and thousands of volunteer hours to make all of this happen, and I couldn't be prouder of them. In my first presentation to this board at the last annual meeting, I shared with you the struggles and mental health challenges I had coming out of the pandemic. Throughout this year, I've shared that story and others with our members through my marginal columns. And I received such positive feedback and support and messages from our members who said that they really appreciated their bar leadership, talking about things that matter to them that they don't often hear from leaders in the bar or elsewhere. So from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate all the support that you showed me after our very first meeting of this year, which gave me the courage and strength and support that I needed to be able to share those messages with our members. But with this year coming to an end, it's time to look forward to next year. And I'm very excited for Director Pratt to be taking the helm of TYLA. She's going to do a truly amazing job. So in conclusion, I'm grateful to all of you for your support of me personally, and for your ongoing and continuing support of the TYLA board, which is the future of bar leadership, and for our TYLA members who are the future of the legal profession in this very, very great state of Texas. So unless anyone has any questions for me, this concludes my final report. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, President Ritter. And on behalf of our entire board, obviously, what a phenomenal job you did. We're so grateful, and more than that, just blessed by your presence. With that, we will move to agenda item 21B, Court of Criminal Appeals report from our liaison, Judge McClure.
Well, the good news for me is after Mr. Ritter's report, no one's going to remember a word I say. So we are ending our term here next week. We had an oral argument this morning. I highly encourage you, if you're in Austin and you have the chance to come visit our court, please do so. I try to remember to say that to you every time I come up here. If you have been following the legislature, you know there's lots of interesting developments in criminal law, and if you are real nice and buy me a drink tonight, I will tell you all of my opinions about those things. And finally, one thing I want to say, hopefully I said this last summer, so our court generally hires law clerks in the fall, and so if you know of any rising third-year law students who are interested in criminal law and want to be in Texas, please send them my way, because this is the time of year where I start thinking about who's going to be my clerk for the fall of 2024. So if you know of anyone, please let me know. This is the end of my first year on this, being a liaison to this board, and I appreciate each and every one of you, and I look forward to the following year. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Judge McClure. That brings us to agenda item 21C, our judicial section liaison, Judge Wilkinson.
Thank you very much, Chad. Well, it is an honor and a pleasure to be here. This is also my last meeting, and I do want to thank the State Bar and also the State Bar Board for allowing the judicial section to have a seat with all of you all and to get to know you all through the year. We're very appreciative of that fact, and it truly has been an honor to sit here and to get to know you all at these meetings the past year. I do want to make sure this evening, and as you go along the week, that you meet the incoming chair of the judicial section, Chief Justice Rebecca Martinez. She is sitting here, and I want to make sure that you all meet her. She is going to do a great job leading the section. And just so you all know, the judicial section actually does not change officer positions at the State Bar annual meeting. Instead, we have a very large conference. It's usually those first few days after Labor Day. This year it's September 5th through the 8th, and that's where we will be making the transition of our leadership. So we're really in this interim period right now. You heard Carlos talk about the executive director or not executive director, but the person that's in charge of the sections, Tracy Knuckles. The judicial section is very close to Tracy, and we were very sad to hear that she is leaving, and I'm not sure how Chief Justice and I are going to manage to get through the judicial conference, but she has promised to assist us no matter what. So we are very grateful to have her support, because it is a large conference, and just we've got about 700 or so judges that participate in that conference every year. I think I will join the table with Judge McClure and say that if you want to buy both of us a cocktail this evening, we'll be happy to talk to you about the judicial section off the record, or how the session impacted the judiciary. To say it was a challenge would be an understatement, and that will just be the teaser that I will leave you all with. I can tell you, though, that the section worked very hard, particularly those that are on the legislative committee, which monitor all of the legislation. The Ethics Committee was also very busy this session as well, providing a great member benefit. One thing that I would like to make sure, and thank you all again, is that judges on Friday, they're encouraged to come to the State Bar annual meeting, and we appreciate the free registration that is given to the judiciary. And I hope that each and every one of you that are here in this meeting will join me on Friday morning at 7:30 right here in this ballroom. It's ballrooms A through D for the bench bar breakfast, because it is going to be a riveting discussion, I am sure, and it is going to honor Justice Lehrman, who we heard from earlier, but also Timothy Berg, who is chair of the Executive Committee of the Uniform Law Commission. So please come join us, and thank you very much again for allowing us to serve and be here.
Thank you, Judge Wilkinson. Any comments from directors? Justice Young, what will you give us for booze? There seems to be a trend of That brings, before we move to agenda item 22, I need the record, the minutes to reflect, I should have said this at the time, on agenda item 11B2, that directors Pratt and Ritter both abstained from voting on that action item. So the minutes should reflect that they did not participate in the vote on that action item. Now, agenda item 22, the report from our general counsel, Ross Fisher.
Good afternoon. I'll be brief. I did want to remind those of you that are outgoing directors about the state retention policies for record retention. You may not have heard this mentioned since you were in the new director's orientation 3 years ago. So just a friendly reminder that for substantive records and emails relating to your service on the State Bar Board of Directors, you're required to maintain those records for 4 years. If you have received anything in the mail, like someone's mailed you hard copies of something, I know sometimes I get stuff as general counsel, unsolicited documents from people of all sorts. Maintain those, and if you don't want to maintain them, scan them in and send them to me or to the bar. If you have questions about what you can keep, what you can delete, feel free to reach out to me or to Chris Ritter. We're here to help, and we just want to remind you of that. Thank you for your service, and let us know if we can help you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. For the minutes, by the way, that should have been directors Pratt, Ritter, and Rispoli, sorry. None of them voted on 11B2, and the minutes should reflect that. Agenda item 23, report from Chief Legal Counsel Chris Ritter.
Before we break into executive session, I did want to make a quick report. It's kind of the end of the year, and I'm really excited to have a new team member with our Office of Legal Counsel. Amanda Engel is in the back. Could you stand up and just wave at everyone? I've been dying in this office because, as you know, our friend Brad went to another, Brad Johnson went to another agency, but Amanda comes to us as legal counsel from the Department of Public Safety. She is going to be an excellent addition to our team. And I should mention to you right now, Ian Stusloff is another attorney with our Office of Legal Counsel, and he's the former general counsel of the Ethics Commission. We have a fantastic team. But I just wanted to mention before we go to closed session, our office has been really busy this past year. We've handled over 500 PIA requests, over 80 contracts that we've reviewed, 9 mostly frivolous, we'll talk about that, lawsuits, but, and then done a lot of work. So I just wanted to say, as a report from our office, we're doing really good work and we have great leadership and we appreciate you all. And with that, I think the next step is closed session.
It's now 3:47 p.m. and the State Bar Board of Directors will recess the open meeting and reconvene in closed session under Texas Government Code Section 551.074 for the purposes of discussing the evaluation of the General Counsel and the evaluation, duties, and compensation of the Executive Director, and Texas Government Code Section 551.071 for the purpose of consulting with legal counsel regarding Harrison versus State Bar of Texas Insurance Trust, Turnbull versus Commission for Lawyer Discipline et al., Washington versus State Bar of Texas et al., and tax matters regarding fundraising for 1415 Lavaca, and as authorized by Texas Government Code Section 551.074 to deliberate regarding personnel matters, with the exception of board liaisons and section representatives. All other individuals, including non-essential staff and other guests, need to excuse themselves at this time from the closed session. We will notify the public when we are 5 minutes out from returning to open session. That would mean if you are a new incoming board member, we would need you to step out now, please. If you have not yet taken the oath of office to join the board, we just need you to step outside for a few minutes. You ready? If we could get everybody to take a seat, we're going to reconvene now, please. Okay. Going to need everybody to come to order, please. It's now 4:17, and the open session of the Board of Directors meeting will now reconvene. During the closed session, only matters relating to the evaluation of the General Counsel and the evaluation, duties, and compensation of the Executive Director in consultation with legal counsel regarding Harrison v. State Bar of Texas Insurance Trust, Turnbull v. Commission for Lawyer Discipline et al., Washington v. State Bar of Texas et al., and tax law matters regarding fundraising for 1415 Lavaca were discussed. No action was taken in closed session. This time we have an action item from President Gibson.
With regard to Agenda Item 23A, on behalf of the Evaluation Subcommittee, I move approval of the recommendation for the Executive Director, Trey Apfel, to receive a 6% increase in his compensation effective June 1, 2023.
That motion does require a second. Director Charbonnet has seconded that one. Any discussion by directors? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Agenda item 24, just for director information, you have end-of-year reports in your materials for the meeting from the State Bar committees and all of the State Bar sections as well. So if you want to acquaint yourselves with what all of those entities have been up to during this bar year, you have that information in your materials. Before we move to agenda item number 25, 3 housekeeping items. Number 1, the buses will leave from the lobby near the valet area at 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock. I would encourage all of you to think of Jennifer Reams as being like Bobby Knight. If you're not on the bus at 6 o'clock on the dot, it's leaving you. So be there at 6 o'clock. Number 2, please leave your name placards at your seats. We'll be back in this room tomorrow, so just leave those. The staff will come in and swap out the outgoing folks and the incoming folks, but if you'll leave it where it rests, that'd be great. Number 3, please, as soon as we finish this meeting, let's go next door so we can get these pictures done. I'm telling you, it's like the fall of Saigon over there every year when we do this. It is complete and utter chaos. So let's do our best to go over there and get that done as expeditiously as we can and try to follow directions, okay? With that, oh, we're not ready yet. Not ready yet. Hold on. What? Yeah, there's more. Agenda item number 25. I think you have to appreciate a chair who invites a guy with his jaw wired shut to do the mission statement at the end of the meeting. Now, I did not know that, in fairness, I did not know that his jaw was wired shut when I asked him to do it, but thankfully he was able to get it undone just in the nick of time. So, Director Cochran, if you would come forward and lead us in the State Bar mission statement, please.
I guess it's golf and pickleball are both pretty dangerous. The mission of the State Bar of Texas is to support the administration of justice system, assure all citizens equal access to justice, foster high standards of ethical conduct for lawyers, enable its members to better serve their clients and the public, educate the public about the rule of law, and promote diversity in the administration of justice and the practice of law.
Thank you. It is now 4:20. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Director Tolshin, seconded by Director McDonald. Without opposition, the chair will declare us adjourned.